So Google Charts are the way that we do a lot of the cool visualizations that you see in, for example, this, and some of the key dashboards that are already showing up. So the line chart, the bar chart, the map. There's a pretty extensive list of types of Google Charts that are available, but those are kind of the big ones. You can overlay multiple types of chart. I'm not going to go all the way into every single detail about Google Charts, but I'm going to show you the basics, and I'm going to show you where the documentation is so that you can get started, and so that you can at least understand what's going on in the reports that we have built in so that you can customize them. Sound good? Cool.
Sounds good to me.
The other thing, just as a brief aside that we talked about very briefly yesterday, is query reports. There are the query report templates that are Google Table and Google Line Chart. And so if you just need one really simple sortable header report or a query report that shows up as a line chart, you can do that directly in the query report. So doing all this in dashboards is more helpful when you're either trying to use multiple reports at once and show them at once, or when you're trying to do more exciting types of Google Charts than the type that just has sortable headers. Okay, so this is something that I'm going to say, but I'm mostly leaving in the slide deck because this is the place where people really run into trouble when they're using Query Builder with Google Charts, which is that by default, we create the, like when you add things to Query Builder that would normally be a number, we put them in with commas. So the way that looks is like this. Okay, so you have number of actions. It defaults to this. And when you have it with commas, Google Charts thinks that you're talking about a string, not a number. If you do that, if you have a number that should be a number, but that is being read as a string, you'll get an error that column number 0 can't be a string. So you just want to be really careful that if you're using Query Builder, you're selecting as a number here, because otherwise Google Charts will get really mad at you and never show you a chart, which I may have run into while I was prepping this, and I was like, why is everything going wrong? This is why. Okay, so there's a bunch of resources that you'll have the link to that can be helpful. I'm going to be working with this, but also our internal reporting has some of the details on this as well. Basically, what you're doing is you're putting a div around the report that says, I want this to be a Google chart, and I want it to be this type of Google chart. Everything else is extra. So you can do a lot of styling. You can add required parameters. You can change colors, everything like that. But this is the basic form of it. So you have div class Google chart, column chart, or bar chart. And we do support all of the Google chart types that are available in the Google Chart API gallery, which is why you also get the link to the Google Chart API information. So these are all the chart types that are available. There's a lot of them, and not all of them will be relevant to your work, but maps can be really cool. Maps can also it can be surprising to people that you can get maps directly out of ActionKit, or sorry, maps, but geocharts is what I was thinking about. that you can get geocharts directly out of ActionKit that show beautiful things like this.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which I was not expecting when I stumbled across an ActionKit report that did that. It's like, oh yeah, this can really happen.
We did a really rudimentary mapping exercise with Tableau recently that people loved and went crazy over, and so we like maps.
Yeah, well, especially working at an international organization, like maps can be really neat. Okay, so this is just what I already said. The Google Chart class shows that you're going to have a chart, and a chart type is another class. Make sure that the report that you're talking about is inside of the div, otherwise it won't read as a Google chart. So then that basic chart shows up like this. So we're using the report progress actions chart. And so this is the report that I have. So it's written in SQL, and it looks like it doesn't have any parameters in it. So we can make this report look nicer, though. Using JavaScript. So you can execute arbitrary JavaScript. In general, it's most useful to execute the JavaScript around the Google chart. But because dashboard reports are so flexible, you can write JavaScript, you can write HTML that does kind of whatever you want. I know at one point, one of our clients was talking about using dashboard reports to do internal documentation. So they would actually just write plain old HTML into a dashboard report as a way of documenting the way that they used ActionKit. So dashboards are really kind of infinitely flexible within limits. Dashboard reports are pretty flexible for doing a pretty wide range of things. So the JavaScript here is what's specified in the Google Charts documentation, which gives you a few different options that you can add in, including color, including titling things, adding labels to the axis, hiding the legend, things like that. You can even do some pretty fancy styling, like putting a border on each of the columns and making each column pretty transparent or like partially opaque so that it can look exactly on your brand standard. So now we have all of the little months showing up in one line instead of in two. We've hidden the legend, and we've added the title to the report. So those are some pretty simple options that you can change, but you can find a lot more of them in the Google Chart documentation. So I'm going to create a really basic report that is a really basic query that is users by country. So I'm going to put in country, and then I'm going to put in user total number of users. I'm not going to filter them at all. And it's going to take a minute. Okay, so we only have users in the United States. So I want a geochart. Okay. and that uses the GeoChart as the class. So user's country is the name of the report. Okay, so it's actually really tiny, but check it out. That's a little map of our users.
Oh, wow.
So, which is like kind of astounding that technology is so cool. Yeah, so clearly I need to style it so that this chart shows up bigger. But just because I had the first column as country and the second column as a number, it was able to render a map with that much information.